gonna get started. I know some more people are coming on when they can. So here we go.
Okay.
Welcome to the Last Line Defense Real Estate Meetup. My name is Aaron Goins, your host, and I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one talked about real estate in my circles. They talked about debt. They talked about saving money. They talked about buying new cars. And it's ironic too because when a lot of people deploy in the military, you see a lot more Dodge Chargers and pickup trucks on the road instead of appreciating value items. So I wanted to start a meetup that people can learn the benefits of real estate, so that they can educate themselves and then start building generational wealth for themselves and their families. I'm very excited today. The guest speakers on here are somebody that I really admire, and I can't wait to hear their story. I've seen their growth from the time I met them to now. It's awesome, and I'm excited to talk to these guys and for everybody to hear their story. So before I get to our guest speakers, is anybody new on here that I have not seen? So let me see.
Yeah, my name is Jesse. I'm new.
How you doing, Jesse?
I'm good.
Can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Certainly. I'm retired military. I retired from the North Carolina National Guard in 2003, I think. And I run an Airbnb in Atlanta metro area. And I'm interested in purchasing multi-family property. I live in North Carolina.
Thank you for coming. And this is one thing about this meetup is that we are geared towards multifamily more so than single family. Most of my guests will be talking more about multifamily and single family over here. Even though I will have some fix and flippers, wholesalers on here as well to talk about that and tax liens. So it's going to be different niches on here. Because real estate is not just one niche. So I'm really happy about that. Anybody else? Bertha, you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hey everybody. So my name is Bertha. I am newly retired. It's been only 1 year from the Air Force. So I'm really just here, that I'm interested in, I've always been interested in real estate. Just never really honestly knew where to begin. So I'm just interested in, hearing what you guys have to say and, any advice and, just I'm open all ears. So.
Thank you, Bertha. I've known Bertha for a very, very long time. Most of my whole military career. And one thing, Bertha, I want to let you know, our guest speakers, they're not there right now, but they're stationed in England.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bertha just retired from England, from Mildenhall. So
yeah.
Yep. Anybody else?
Well, I'm new to the this site. I'm Desmond. First of all, I want to thank all the military peoples for their service. I have a lot of family members in there as well. I met Aaron through one of the other meetups, and I'm here to learn more knowledge about multifamily. I have single family townhomes I'm invested in Virginia Beach. So I'm here to network and also gain more knowledge.
Thank you, Desmond. Thank you, man. Anybody else? I don't really see anybody else who has not been on here. To anybody else? Okay, so look, if they on it, we can talk about that next week. So let me get to our guest speakers for today. Michael Barnhart and Suzy Sober, right, Suzy?
Sevier.
So Sevier. Okay, I'm sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
All right, so let me just give you a little background about our guest speakers. Suzy and Michael are founders of Adventurers Real Estate Investors. Hey, anybody please mute yourselves.
Okay.
Suzy is the head of investor relations and marketing, while Michael is the head of acquisitions. Together, they specialize in targeting core plus and value add commercial real estate investment opportunities to offer lucrative returns to their investors through implementation of a business model that provides value to both residents and the local community. And today they're going to talk about their value add 88 unit apartment community they got in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Michael is a PhD student in biochemistry at the University of Cambridge, located in the UK. Michael has over 15 years of military experience and is professionally trained certified professional manager. Suzy currently works as a program manager, supply chain coordinator for a global biotechnology company that's located in Cambridge, England. Suzy's strong financial background on business and marketing experience brings massive value to venturous real estate investors. So, welcome, Michael and Suzy, to the Last Line of Defense Real Estate Meetup. I'm really excited to hear you guys' story. I met Michael and Suzy back in the RE Live event last April, and we was all VIP members along with Kenneth Hines that's on here as well. And I just tell you guys their growth. I mean, I always tell them about that, but that growth is amazing. From where they were at, the question they was asking to now is just amazing, and this inspires me because I can be in that same course. So, Michael and Suzy, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. And everybody, thank you so much for your attendance. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to everybody, and we're hoping to share some knowledge. Yeah. And Aaron, yeah, it's been a pleasure, getting to know you over the years as well. And it's great to see you, Kenny, as well. So yeah, I was going to give a brief background. So as Aaron mentioned, so I'm active duty Air Force. I was teaching at the Air Force Academy, and then now I'm getting a PhD in biochemistry at the University of Cambridge. And then I'll basically end up back at the Air Force Academy, where will be my final tour, where I go finish out my military career and retire, and then transition to real estate full time. That's the plan. We have about 7 years left, until I'm retirement eligible with my commitment to teach back at the academy. And so at that point, Suzy and I are being active as possible right now. And then our ultimate goal is to, move more into the passive realm of real estate. And then when I retire from the military, then I'll be it. We'll both retire and kind of walk away and be able to do whatever we want, living off of the passive investments and the distributions from those. Suzy currently, as Aaron mentioned, is a program manager and a supply chain coordinator. So brings a lot of and also a financial background. Brings a lot of great experience into adventurous real estate investors. And so, combined with my program management experience has really helped us be very successful syndicators thus far. I'll let Suzy take it away, and she'll talk a little bit more about like our journey. Kind of, it started around the time that Aaron and us met, but I'll let her take it away.
Yeah, so our journey actually started because of COVID. So when the first lockdown happened, it was March 23rd, of last year in the UK. It was over 100 days long. And so because Michael works in a lab, we were then forced to be at home because the lockdown there was you can only go outside to get groceries and exercise once a day. And so Michael and I, we don't have a TV. So we were like, okay, what are we going to do if we can't leave the house? So our idea was that we were going to start a mini book club with each other. And we did. And one of the books that we read was Multiple Streams of Income. And as it progresses through, because it starts with, I guess, I don't want to say easiest, but I guess easier and then to more difficult. And that led to real estate investing. And Michael got to that part and he's like, whoa, why are we not doing this? It's something that we had thought about, but didn't really, I guess, dive too deep into it. And so then once I read it, I was like, yeah, why not? We might as well just try. And so because everything went online, it gave us a great opportunity to get into the space very quickly and very effectively. So like Aaron said, we started going to conferences, we started going to meetups, we started reading all the books, we started listening to all the podcasts, just so that we could get as much information as possible as quickly as we could. Because although like we knew that COVID was going to last. We didn't know like when in-person meetups would start. We didn't know when conferences would start. And because realistically, like from the UK, Michael and I could probably attend like 1 or 2 conferences a year. And even like within this timeline, we've been able to attend like 8 or 9 as of now. But so with all the conferences and such, we like became really big on bigger pockets. And within bigger pockets, it definitely talks about single family homes. It's like the main focus. So we were like, okay, like this is where we will start. And so what we did was that we set up an entire team in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we chose that market particularly just because of the, I guess, because of the cash flow and the area. And it was just everything like that we were reading about that we wanted. And with that, like we started interviewing property managers, we interviewed real estate agents, interviewed contractors. So we put all of like the policies, I guess, and processes in place in order to be effective from long distance, you know, because if people are doing like real estate investments from California and all the way in Florida, we were like, well, why can't we just do it, you know, from the UK to the US? And so we had 2 properties under contract, and when an inland hurricane came through, which was not like on our risk profile whatsoever. And so because of that, we fell out of contract because we could no longer get the financing that we need. But so like our main thing was that we were going to have like 25 single family homes, and we were going to sell them all and then go straight into multifamily, because we didn't, at that point, we had no idea really how multifamily worked, like what the whole structure was. But then we had to think about it like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Because the city itself like lost 60% of the trees, didn't have power for 3 to 4 weeks. And so we were at a place where we didn't want to wait a year to get into real estate, because we didn't know like what the space would be like. Would we be able to still do the meetups and all the education online? We just did not want to wait that long. So we're like, okay, like let's get into multifamily. Let's just pivot and see how it goes. So then we transitioned all of our education and our podcasts and our meetups to multifamily. Specifically. And it was just like go, go, go from there, because once we got into the space and started networking, people were like, well, you needed to start raising capital yesterday. You need to be able to like underwrite. You need to be able to have all these broker relations. And we were like, whoa, you know, like we got to get to this. So I guess by the time this happened, the UK had opened up a little bit. But shortly after, we then go into our second lockdown. So then in the second lockdown, again, we had the opportunity to really just focus on real estate. And like in that time frame, because Michael and I were working together, and if anybody knows, like if you're in a business with your spouse, or even if they aren't your spouse, just having a partner within itself, if you don't have like clear roles and boundaries and identities, like people will step on each other's toes. So before we started to progress into multifamily, we were like, okay, how are we going to like define our roles so that we can be the most efficient in regards to like not stepping on each other's toes or just not doing double work? So within that space, Michael started doing acquisitions and broker relations, and I was going to do the investor relations and all of the marketing for our company. And so within that space, like Michael was calling brokers a lot. I mean, because a lot of multifamily is like in-person relationships. So what we learned was that because with investments, I mean, even with single family, you know, you can have other people's money. So even within that space, like the relationships that are formed in person, it's just a different relationship. Like you can gain trust faster, you know, you can get to know people better. And so we were having to do like more touch points with our brokers and with, I guess, potential investors and everything. So like Michael was calling brokers up and being, I mean, just like weekly to be like, hey, this is what I'm into, like, this is what I want. And I'm going to show you like the attention that you need as well, so that you know that I'm serious, you know, just to create that friendly rapport. And so I guess within that space, I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, terrain. So another big thing, sorry, about our multifamily experience is that because we're all the way over here, we had to have a boots on the ground. So like with single family, our real estate agent was like really on our side. She had worked with investors before, so she knew what to look for. But like the brokers are definitely not going out and looking at assets for us, you know, like their main job is to sell. And so because we were pivoting and we knew we had to create that larger investor base, we started posting on Facebook more. We started posting on LinkedIn more, just because there was an identity shift. So like people knew Michael as Air Force and professor, and people knew me as business, but they did not know us as real estate investors. So we were posting a lot. I mean, and we were putting out that blog content just because within the space, you also have to have that thought leadership platform. And because we were doing that, one of Michael's old classmates reached out and was like, hey, like, I've actually recently, I guess, left the Air Force and now I'm in real estate investing full time. We should talk. And so once we figured out what our goals were, we were like, oh, wow, like we have a boots on the ground, and we have the boots on the ground in an area that is worth investing in. And so then that's how I guess we chose our market. So we had the boots on the ground before we chose our market. And some people will do it a different way, but it's really what is best for you and your team and your goals. But so we chose Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And so that was like our first boots on the ground. But like within the networking space and everything, there's also a lot of introductions, because once we started telling people, okay, like this is our market, people are like, oh, hey, I know somebody in that market, you should chat. Like, oh, this person is there, you should chat. And so through those introductions, we actually created like a mentor, and it was like an organic relationship. It wasn't a paid mentor or anything, but that really helped us as well, just because we knew somebody who was already investing in the area. So like he was able to look over Michael's underwriting and be like, yes, like this is correct, or no, like you should change these numbers a little bit. And so like throughout those relationships that we had formed, and I guess through the team that we made, and now our team is of 6, but we are currently, I guess to like fast forward a little bit, we are currently closing on an 88 unit tomorrow. And so that will be our first acquisition. So I guess starting from everything in April, which was like single family, from pivoting to multifamily in August till now, we have our first asset. And I mean, it is like anyone can do it. Like everybody has it in them. It's literally just putting in the effort and finding the time. So we definitely, like, we did the early mornings, we did the late nights, but it's definitely like, if you put your mind to it, you can definitely do it. There's no stopping you at all. Do you have anything you want to add?
That's great.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you a couple questions. Now I'm gonna open up for the audience to ask you guys questions. So you said that the first thing you guys had to do was to have each of the roles. So how difficult was it? Was it just, okay, well, my strength is this, my strength is that, or was it, look, let's stay with one, let's stick with one thing? How did you guys differentiate your different roles?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. And so like me being a biochemist and being more analytical, which, I mean, Suzy's very analytical too. Like she worked in finance, corporate finance for a while. So like she has the analytical side as well. But I really enjoy spreadsheets, and I really like underwriting and things like that. Suzy was more like outgoing and like the face, I feel like, was kind of forming like the face of the company, if you will. Definitely a prettier face than myself. And so, yeah, I thought that maybe, we had sat down and we chatted about it, like I thought, hey, let's define some roles from the very get-go. I think we can, if we divide, we can conquer more and faster. And so, I was like, hey, I'll take on the acquisition side of things. I'll look for the deals, deal sourcing, things like that. And if you want to focus on like writing blog content, investor relations, marketing and things like that, you can do that. So.
Yeah, because at first we were both writing blog content, and then it would come to a situation where it was like, oh, well, did you write something? And I said, no, like, I thought you were writing something, and he'd be like, no. And it's like, oh, we have to have an article written, and like, we knew we both like would enjoy the underwriting, but it was really just like well, what would you prefer to do? Like, we just made it like a very open space. But what like amazes me the most is that within this, like, it wasn't like a natural thing. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. But it's weird because like in other companies, you know, like where most people have a W-2, like there's a CFO, there's a CEO, you know, there's a like a chief marketing officer. So like for us not to go into it right away was kind of strange, but then I can also see how you don't have the conversation, you know, because it's not like clearly defined from the beginning.
Right.
And just because there's two of us as well, like I mean, I like she said, I write blog content as well. I do stuff on the website. I do a lot of reaching out to investors and keeping them warm and things like that, making sure that all the questions are answered, and vice versa. Like Susie does analyze properties, do due diligence and things like that, and also like chat with brokers and things like that. So like, if I start to struggle with one area, then she can pick up the slack and vice versa, right? So
Right.
it's also really good. Like she's not completely in the dark about other parts of the business, and I'm not completely in the dark either. So
Right.
it is good.
Yeah, I mean, because like, I I think a lot of us been taught, look, if you're gonna look for partners, find somebody who does something different from you, because a lot of times you find people who are doing the same stuff you like or like the same interests. Now, you guys are married, so a little bit different. You guys, it's easier to coordinate with your spouse than a stranger. But still, I can still see the head knocking sometimes, like, well, I like to do this. Well, I like to do this. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I had that question in mind first. And then also, okay, so you guys have got a value add property in less than a year of doing real estate. Um, and I mean, you guys didn't really start this until the fall, right? You guys didn't really start looking for a home until the fall, right? You still had to figure out what you guys really want to do, right?
Mhm.
So,
Right.
can you just tell me, how did you find a team? Because you guys say you find a team for single family. How did you find a team that you can work with since you're being overseas?
Yeah, great question, Aaron. And so the biggest thing, Susie kind of alluded to this earlier a little bit, was the first thing was defining boots on the ground, right? So since we're not in the market, or since we're not in any U.S. markets where we're currently at, we had to find, a boots on the ground. And so you can go either way, right? Maybe identify your market and then find your boots on the ground, or find your boots on the ground that potentially in a market or close to a market that you want to invest in, right?
Right.
And so actually through the mastermind, the War Room Mastermind, it's actually where I reconnected, and on Facebook as well, where I reconnected with one of my former classmates from the Air Force Academy. And he, we've known each other for like 16 years now, right? And so like I had this trust. We went through basic together and stuff like that. So like we had this trust that was already kind of built. And we kind of kept in touch over the years, but there was this inherent trust, right? And then started talking, firing up some conversations with him and talking with him some more, and then realizing that, hey, our goals aligned, number one, and then number two, like he was in an area that we really liked. Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they have some higher cap rates for multifamily properties, which alludes and it lends to higher cash flow and things like that. And so that's kind of what I don't want to get it. We can get into the underwriting later. But higher cash flow is kind of what we've been trying to kind of discussing with our lenders, because we like higher cash flow properties, cash flowing from day one. Over 50% of the return comes from cash flow. Like those are the requirements that I have for underwriting. In some markets like Texas and things like that, it's nearly impossible to find stuff like that. So that's why we like those markets. So after we found the boots on the ground, the next thing was okay, we're gonna be hunting after properties that are upwards of $5 million, maybe even 10. We're gonna have to have some capital partners, right? We have to have some partners who can bring some capital to the deal as well. We ended up raising $1.75 million for this current deal, and we wanted to make sure, since it was our first capital raise as well, even though we had been out searching for investors and things like that, and growing our investors list, we didn't know how easy or difficult the capital raise would go, and so we wanted to make sure that we had the right team together. So we had another person who was going to come on for capital raising, but also with helping out with asset management, things like that. And then a mentor. The mentor that we have, he is a rock star, like incredible dude. All of his assets are in the markets that we're interested in. Like all of his assets are in Tulsa, right? So that's a key as well, because you hear a lot of people who pay tens of thousands or $30,000 for mentors and coaches and things like that in the multifamily space. And those mentors are in a different market than you want to invest. Like, so I know somebody, in Northern California who's looking to invest in Texas. Their coach is in Florida, investing in Florida. and they're all trying to invest in Texas. And there's a huge disconnect, like that coach and mentor doesn't really understand Texas market. The new person definitely doesn't understand the market and things like that. So having a mentor and in the market, and even knowing the specific submarkets within your market was critical. He knew everything when it came to underwriting. This is how much your all these expenses are going to be. I'm going to go through all of them, but like, this is how everything's going to be in this specific submarket, because hey, here's my property who's doing the same thing, and we get to leverage his property management company, who's crushing his property. It's like doing a really good job, and so that was like huge. Like, came in with a lot more confidence when we were looking at purchasing properties in those specific markets. So,
but I was going to say, like, the biggest like reason though that we even met all these people was just like networking and telling everybody like this was the space that we're in, and like this is what this is what we can do and this is what we want. So I mean, I would say that the biggest thing to like meet people would just be going to the meetups and the conferences and like being consistent, right? Because like that's how you gain the trust, is the consistency that you're showing up every week or that you're showing up in the space, so that like you can prove to others that you're serious about it as well.
Right, right. So, Michael, could you, since you talk about it, especially with some newer people on here, could you just briefly overview underwriting a little bit, so that young people who are new, especially most of our family, can understand?
Yeah. I just, you want me to talk about the underwriting for this 88 unit, or?
Good. Yeah, please.
Cool. Yeah, so this one's, we took a little different approach to the business plan on this. I mean, a lot of people, like, the easiest way to underwrite a property, right, is to look at what units need to be renovated, and then where you can push rents after they're renovated, right? Like, that's the easiest value add opportunity. Sometimes, with searching around for those properties, those are easy to find sometimes. However, the vacancy is really high, or there's some other issues of the property, like a lot of deferred maintenance that you have to take care of as well. And so we wanted to look for a property that was cash flowing from day one. We will never purchase a property that's not cash flowing. That's just not where we're at, and the risk profile is too high. And so we're also looking for C plus, B minus assets as well. There's typically a stronger tenant base, especially post COVID.
Right.
The residents who are in the B and the C plus assets are not necessarily in the service industry and not necessarily reliant on those jobs that are at high risk for COVID. Since there's still, like, even though there's light at the end of the tunnel and everything like that right now, we're still in the thick of it. So we wanted to make sure that the asset that we were purchasing had a very strong resident base. So looking at narrowing down our search even further, with all those parameters and stuff like that, we found this property, and there was the current owner has done about 70% of the renovations on the property. There's about 30% left, and so we're going to basically finish those up, carry across the finish line. However, the caveat to that is with all the one bedrooms, we're actually going to be adding washer and dryer connections and washer and dryers to the units, which from that we'll be able to drive get about $85 rent premium from that, which is still a lot lower than all of our comps. The two bedrooms that are on the property, which only make up about 24. There's 24 two bedrooms. Excuse me, 16 two bedrooms. There's 24 junior ones, but I'll get into that in a second. The 16 two bedrooms, they already had the washer and dryer connections in the facility or in the units. However, what we found out was when we walked the units, a lot of the units actually didn't have the washer and dryers in them, right? Because there's not a lot of apartment renters who actually own their own washer and dryers, and they carry around from place to place, right? So with that, we wanted to add some value back, and we're going to be leasing some washer and dryers to each one of those properties, which is be about a $50 rent bump from that. So, and then with the other, there's 24 units that are a junior 1-1, and basically what we're going to do is we're not really pushing the rents too much on those, but we are improving the property, just adding some amenities. We're adding a barbecue pit with an outdoor pergola, which is near the pool area, and then there's some deferred maintenance that we need to take care of as well. The seller did a really good job at like remodeling the leasing office and putting in like a nice covered entryway with a chandelier and stuff like that, which it makes the property really look great. So it's a B- asset. It's like a C+ asset with B- improvements if you want to look at it that way. So it's trending upwards. So really excited about the asset. All of our property management company, we've been that's another thing too, is like people think they can do something with a property without actually consulting with the property management company. So unless you know the market and the specific sub market, like without consulting with a property management company, you have no idea what you can actually do, right? So you want to make sure that you get your property management company on board before you even submit an LOI. So I had been talking to the property management company before we even submitted the letter of intent on the property and getting it under contract to make sure, hey, will my underwriting, will these numbers hold up? Like, can you do this? They're like, oh yeah, absolutely. And actually they're like, we can push it here, And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be conservative and I'm gonna take that back, $15, $20 on the rent increase, just to be conservative in my underwriting, even though that they said, oh, we can easily push it to this number here. So make sure that you're, in step with your property management company from day one is huge. A lot of people will end up getting a property under contract, and then in the middle of closing, like while they're closing on a property, it takes like 60 to 75 days, upwards of 90 days sometimes even to close on a property. During that proper process, then they kind of retrogradely try to go back and try to figure out, okay, which property management company is the best for this property. And that's I wouldn't say that's the right way to do it. I mean, I'm not saying people haven't been successful doing that, but I would say, you want to make sure that you consult with your property management company from day one before submitting an LOI. Did I answer your question here?
Yeah. That's the question. So one more question before I open up to the audience. So, like I said, you guys had an incredible journey in less than a year, and that's amazing. And let's go back to capital raising, which I'm dear to. And I know that you guys signed up for the Hunter Thompson class. How's that? First of all, I want to ask you, how's that going before I ask you my question? How's the Hunter Thompson Academy
No, it's
going?
great. Like the information that you get is it's fantastic. It's like, oh, cool. Like I can implement all of this now. And it just was stuff that we were thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still watching videos of the 30-day that's what 6 million 30 days. So I'm still watching that videos mostly every day of new speakers and then write down notes myself. So going back to capital raise, how was that experience for the first time for you guys? Because some people are confident talking, some people aren't. It's awkward trying to raise money from people, and sometimes it's like, hey, I gotta do what I gotta do. So can you just let the audience know how it was for you guys raising capital?
So like the whole process, because like we were in the mode where we were like, okay, this is what we're doing and we're doing it now. We got to put on our jetpack and go from 0 to 100 like immediately. So like the whole process, like from when we started, I guess I don't want to say it was exhausting. I don't really know. I don't know what word to use right now, but we were doing like 20 to 25 calls a week. So what people usually say is like out of the amount of investors that you have, like maybe 10% of them will invest. So for us, we needed, like with the capital that we needed to raise, like 45 investors. Well, because it was also our first one, like we had no clue. Like the people investing also like had no clue, they were going to trust us, like Michael and I. So like, yes, our team like has experience, but like they were trusting Michael and I, right? Like, because we were the people that they were talking to or communicating with all the time. So, I mean, we were confident that we could raise like $500,000 for sure, just because we were doing those calls every week. Because the 20 to 25 calls, that was probably for like 2.5 months. So, I mean, we were talking to a lot of people, and that was not including the people that we had talked to like before we started, like with the multifamily go. But so with like our webinar and everything and like hyping everybody up. So after or I guess the webinar even started, you know, like we started getting those soft commits and it was like, oh, this is so exciting, you know, like money's coming in. And we got to like $1 million. And then for like 3 days, 4 days, it was like silent. And then you stop sleeping, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Are we going to make it? And like what we found out was just that like this happens, you know, like with people. I mean, I guess I could also say like us, you know, like I'd like to get to the point where we can raise $5 million in less than 1 day, but like none of us knew like what was going to happen. And so like what people need, because like, yeah, there are the people who are super excited because they're like, I have money, I want it to go right now. Like, I don't need to think about this. This is the investment that I want. Because people say like, if you have the deal, the investors will come. But that's not necessarily true, you know, like you have to create those relationships, because ours was a 506B. So like we had to have a relationship with all these people before. Like we don't know how many other people they're talking to. Like we don't know if like they're thinking about other investments or not. Like, yes, they tell us like, oh, I'm ready to invest. But if they're talking to 4 other potential active syndicators, they're telling them the same thing, you know, which is true though. They are ready to invest, but they just have to wait to see when a deal is going to come. So we just didn't really know. But what we found out was that there is always that little lull, just because people aren't as excited as we are, you know, like this is our baby, like this is our thing. So this is what we think about right now 24/7, but that does not mean other people are thinking about it 24/7. And so then after that, I guess little period, like the money came in, but then it was just like the little pushes. And by push, I guess it's more of just like a reminder, you know, because people had said like, oh, I want to invest. I just need over the weekend. But then when you don't hear from them, you know, you're just like, hey, like, how's everything going? Is there anything I can help you with? And more often than not, people are saying like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the follow-up. Because like there's stuff going on in their lives that like we don't know about, you know, like, so for example, like Michael and I don't have kids, but for people who have kids, like I'm sure, I don't know, 4 kids later, you aren't thinking about an investment anymore. You know, you're thinking about bath time and reading and school and all the 4 other things that come with that, you know, or even whatever your family situation is or your work situation is. Because if it's really stressful at work, again, you're probably not thinking about an investment. So it's just like those gentle reminders that were definitely helpful as well, that got us through. But then also with raising capital, you have to, I guess, be very open and very patient, which, I mean, most people are doing that anyways, but you have so many questions that come in, and you have so many questions that come in just because people are nervous as well, right? So even if we discuss something from the webinar, we probably had like 10 other people ask us about it. And so it's just being like, okay, like you have to coach them through a lot of the process as well, which is fine. And like education is part of this, right? Like we never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. It's just that nobody tells you that, you know, like people talk about capital raising and they talk about syndicating, but like you don't really get in the, I guess,
weeds.
Yeah, the weeds. I was going to say in the mushy, but I don't know what mushy has to do with it. But yeah, in the weeds. So I mean, I don't know, I guess like now that it's done, like I'm very thankful for it. And it like was really like the whole thing was a learning experience, but it does get pretty stressful just because like if you lose the deal, that's not good, you know, like
Yeah.
You can go, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was just gonna piggyback on that. Like the amount of risk capital that we had in the deal, you know,
That's
by
true
the time
too.
you start raising the money, like I think we have like at this point we have like $170,000 risk capital right now. So if we don't close, I mean, we have a commitment letter and everything like that from Freddie. So I'm not worried about closing, but
Yeah.
you know, if we didn't close, we didn't raise the money, right? Then and we couldn't close, that would be huge, right? Like that's a lot of money to lose. So yeah, it was like Susie said, like the first, like right after the webinar, you know, we had this spike, $1 million in like 24 hours. And then it was just like crickets. And we didn't sleep for a week. And we were just constantly following up, turning over every brick, making sure that, hey, was there a family member that we didn't reach out to? You know, like, is there anybody that we know, like, you know, long lost, you know, cousin or something like that, who was like a millionaire or something, you know, like, Yeah, and then making sure that the people who said they can bring capital to your deal can bring capital to your deal.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a big
That's
one.
huge. Luckily, Susie and I had made and we had made the connections prior to actually finding a deal, where we had enough investors to cover. But make sure that if you partner with somebody, they say they can bring X number of dollars, make sure that they can bring the X number of dollars minimum.
Right.
So not like, oh, I think I can bring 500K. That's why we say now we Susie and I are very confident we can bring at least 500K. In potentially, anyways. So just make sure that you check with your partners and stuff like that if you plan on partnering up. So yeah, that was very stressful. That was a stressful part.
I see. I'm excited to do mine, man, and I definitely reach out to you guys about this. I should be started really soon.
Yeah, if you ever can't sleep, we're here for you.
Yeah, it was so stressful. Mike lost all his hair.
That's right.
And now I have enough for both of us, so it works. Oh, like that.
So does anybody have any questions for him? I can ask him questions all day.
I just got something, Mike and Susie. Besides the washer dryer, and by the way, I was on another meetup last night, Tate's Salt Lake meetup. They were talking multifamily brokers, and one of the things the multifamily broker guy said was saying, like, the number one amenity to add right now, because of COVID, or is the washer dryers and units, because that's a really great idea. Are you guys going to do that? I know you said in your 2 bedrooms and all your units, including the one, like the juniors and the 1 bedrooms, and then
so all the 1 bedrooms are going to get connections plus stackables, and then all the 2 beds, they had the connections. We're just to add the side by sides there, but the junior 1 beds, and there's only 24 of those. They'll still be able to use the laundry facility on site. And the reason why we weren't able to get into the weeds too a little bit right now, the reason why we weren't able to do all of the units with washer and dryers, because there's a laundry contract on the property. The laundry contract is signed for 10 years, which is just ridiculous, right? And you have to pay, to get out of the contract, you'd have to pay whatever they would make plus inflation and things like that, for the rest of the contract to get out, right? So it doesn't make financial sense to do it. And so, but we were able to negotiate with the vendor. Thank you. The vendor, I was going to say the name of the company, but the vendor, we were able to negotiate with the vendor to take out a certain portion of the washer and dryers of the facility, in the laundry facility, because we're only going down to 24 units that are going to be using it, and potentially just 24 people, maybe 48 at the most, right, to be using the laundry facility. The reason how we were able to negotiate that was purchasing the washer and dryers through that company as well. And then also getting a service contract on those washer and dryers, which we want anyways, and it's like dirt cheap for a service contract. So
and your PM company said would be able to get to $50 per month, or $40 to $50 per month per unit.
So the 1 bedrooms, because we're adding the connections plus the washer and dryer, we'll be able to do an $85 rent bump. And then just for the just installing the side by sides, because the 2 bedrooms already have the connections, we're just installing the side by sides, we'll be able to get $55 rent increase. So
Anybody else?
One question. Is the exit strategy a buy and hold or refi? And the second question would be, was there a minimum you were allowing investors to invest? Like they couldn't come to you with $50,000. Was there a minimum?
Yeah, great question. So I'll answer the first.
Answer the exit strategy.
Exit strategy, yeah, sorry. I was thinking of multiple different things about the other question, but yeah, exit strategy was as a buy and hold. The exit was we're looking at a 5 to 7 year exit. Not really looking at a refi. However, we did leave it open for a potential refi if necessary. Our underwriting is pretty conservative. We think we could probably exit in like 4 maybe 3 or 4 years. What we'll see the way that Tulsa's trending. But with that, we don't want to create, we also got a loan product that does not pigeonhole us into not refining or not exiting the property when we want to. We got a prepayment penalty that's pretty low in years 3, 4, and 5. And so we can exit or refi when necessary, because we don't want to end up with a property that we've done all these renovations, drove up the value of the property, but now we're stuck with 55% leverage versus 80% leverage, which we're at now. So,
Gotcha.
And then to answer your second question, for this one, we did a $35,000 minimum. However, check for anybody who's looking at getting into a syndication. You see the price tag of 35,000 or 50,000, and you're like, oh, it's my first syndication. I don't know if I want to invest that much money. Check with the syndicate. Check with the general partners. There's typically a reserve that they have where it can go a little bit lower. You don't publicize that, but if you want to let other people in, it's a first time or something like that. Check with your general partners. So, for example, in this one, we had a minimum of 15K. That was like our bottom dollar minimum.
Yeah, because we also figured that to kind of do the math, because with 506B you can only have 35 sophisticated investors. So we figured we would have 10 accredited investors, and so with the remaining capital we could then also have 35 people at 35,000. So that's kind of how we picked our amount, just because we wanted to be able to let in as many sophisticated investors as we could, but then also by being able to hit our raise.
Right. Mark. Okay.
So I have a question from the audience. How do you split the profits with your investors?
So this specific property we do an 8% preferred return. And I can explain that if anybody wants me to. And then after the 8% preferred return, that's a 70-30 split. So 70% to the limited partners, 30% to the general partners. And the reason why it's 70-30 is because we do the 8% preferred return. So 8% preferred return means that the investors will get paid back at minimum an 8% preferred return before an 8% return before the general partners see any of the money. It's the easiest way to explain it.
Okay.
Let's see. So somebody asked, was a syndication or partnership? This was a syndication. Oh, Aaron, you already answered that. Sorry. I heard 1.75 equity. You get a loan. How much was it? Yeah, so we raised 1.75 million in equity, and then we got a loan for 3.56 million. And so the purchase price is 4.375, and our CapEx budget is around a little over $500,000. So.
Hey, Mike, I don't remember. Did you guys have a COVID reserve? Is this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Kenny. So yeah, we did have a COVID reserve. So Freddie Mac is only requiring a 12-month principal and interest reserve right now, while Fannie Mae is requiring on some of their loan products an 18-month. So it doesn't make sense sometimes for the deal to do an 18-month, just because you have to raise so much extra capital. However, what we ended up doing for this, instead of raising the extra capital, which ended up being about $200,000, instead of raising the extra capital, extra $200,000 for the COVID reserve, what we're doing is we're spending about $350,000 of our CapEx budget in year 1, and then the other $200,000 in year 2. And that $200,000 is going to come from the COVID reserve because it gets released after 1 year. So instead of raising the extra 200,000 and then diluting back the returns to the investors, or how you want to say, diluting or juicing the returns or whatever, we decided just to use that money for CapEx and not raise the extra money.
Another question I have. Yeah, upon the investors and the paperwork, did you have one law firm of yours take care of everything, or? Because I know the cost, I don't know if it's 5%, 3% of all the capital you're raising. How did you find that process?
Yeah, great question. So we had been in talk with some lawyers beforehand. So for the SEC attorney, we ended up paying about 20 grand for them. And after this is after, so it's like 15K for everything, the LLC formation plus the writing the private placement memorandum,
Right.
and then and everything else that comes with whatever you need. And then the blue sky filings, so those are the filings you have to have for each state, for each investor that's a resident of. That was an extra like 5K. So, I mean, it comes out to be like 20K for the SEC attorney, and then our real estate attorney was around about $2,000. So looking at about $2,200 total. We also had to, also in the closing, not something we had to pay for at-risk capital, but in the closing, we also had to pay for Freddie's attorney and our lender's attorney as well. So there's like so many attorneys involved, man, Desmond. There's like, yeah, this is how they make their money, So it's like I think there's an extra like 15K split up between those two. So yeah, but we never really we didn't have to put up that money. It just comes out of, well, I mean, we will have to pay that money. It wasn't at-risk capital that we had to pay up front.
So any more questions?
I think Ellison also had a question about, do we look at the loan before sending LOI? Yeah, so that's a great question. And another thing that I failed to mention earlier is like this property is stabilized. And so that's what we also look for in properties. So the light to moderate value add and then the core plus opportunities typically tend to be, stabilized properties. 90%, that stabilized means 90% occupancy or higher for a minimum of 90 days. And so this property was 90% occupied. Actually, we found out a couple of days ago, it's actually at 100% occupancy now, which is pretty wild. So we're going into it with higher cash flow than we thought. So we're
Is
excited.
that physical or economic? Do you guys have it? Do you know if there's any non-payments due to COVID and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, great question, Kenny. So I mean, physical is 100%, and then there are two residents that we have that are have been late on payments, but just 2 of the 88. They tend to pay sometimes, some months. If you look at the
T12.
Not a T12. You look at the rent rolls going back to August, whatever. You can see that they paid, then they don't pay. They pay and they don't pay. The thing is, like, there's no CDC letters on the property right now. So like, I'm not really sure if I don't know the total scoop on it. And we'll get the resident ledgers and everything like that once we take over. But that bad debt that they have it stays with the seller, which is nice, I guess. On takeover, we can just kick those people out if necessary.
So Jasmine asks, lessons learned, what would you do differently in your next deal?
We might have different answers, but
yeah,
you can
go. that's definitely a difficult question. And actually, we're going to have a hot wash here in a couple weeks, where we're going to go through the 700 emails that were exchanged and the 457 documents and counting that were created for this acquisition. And so we're going to go through each one of those and kind of look at, take a step back. And we've kind of been taking notes along the way too, of like, missteps that we've had. But things that we would have done differently right off the bat, ask for as much as possible in your LOI from the get-go. I mean, ask for like a laundry list of things and let the seller cross off those things. Like let him or her have easy wins in the LOI. If you ask for 35 things in the LOI and they're like, they can cross off 7, but you only wanted like 10 of those things to begin with, then it's a win, right? So it's just things that because we try to go back and ask for some things in the PSA after the LOI is accepted, and it was kind of like, pulling teeth and things like that. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing I can think of right now. Ask for as much as possible in the LOI going, initially. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. Just because, I mean, like, that's where you start, right? It's literally the very beginning. So like getting as much information as you can, like going into due diligence, if everything is accepted, just makes everything so much easier.
And don't assume that if
Just don't assume anything.
Yeah. If something is done normally in a transaction, for example, like on this property, I'll just be completely honest with you guys. Like they wanted to see, we wanted to see the resident ledgers, which is not a uncommon ask, right? Like everybody, you look at the resident ledgers and you get to see, well, because he had mixed like bank accounts and things like that, because he had 3 properties in the area that were all sharing the same bank account. It was kind of hard to look at the resident ledgers and things like that and like cross compare those. So anyways, make sure you have a minimum that. That's like a common ask, right? I mean, you don't need to put that in an LOI. You don't need to put that in a PSA because sellers would just give that information to you. So that was something that was huge for us as a learning experience. So, I mean, the seller did end up like certifying the rent rolls and saying, which had, balances and deposits and things like that on there. So we were able, he certified it, signed his name to it. So then we could potentially, if he's lying about anything, then we could take him to court and things like that. So, Ellison also asks, how much time did you agree upon with seller after LOI? It's a great question. So we initially had 30 days for due diligence, and then we had 45 days for closing. See you, Kenny. Take care.
Hey, Ken.
Well, we had 30 days for due diligence and then 45 days for closing after the due diligence period was up. So 75 days total. In negotiating the PSA, we knocked off like 5 days off of closing on the back end. In order to show him that, hey, we're serious, we can get this done pretty quickly. If I would have done it, if we can do that over again, I wouldn't have given up those extra 5 days. So we had to extend because of the weather and stuff like that in Texas right now. The closings take a little bit longer, so we had to pay the additional. That's another thing too, is like make sure you have an extension at the end, because sometimes Freddie gets clogged up, especially with the President's Day on Monday as well. Freddie gets clogged up and stuff like that. So Freddie took a week longer than we expected. So we had to put another $44K down to extend for another 30 days. So.
Wow. I'm happy for you guys, and that's awesome, man. I mean, like I said, you're gonna have a car wash pretty soon and really go over stuff. And I think the next one is gonna be so much easier because you went to this one right here. So I'm excited for y'all future. That's awesome, man. Like I said, you guys have really grown just so much. And shoot, man, Bill Allen needs some speakers, man. Hey, there y'all go, man. Y'all be those speakers with Bill Allen,
Yeah.
Hey, we're the VIP. Look what happened. So
exactly.
We definitely got our ROI.
Yeah, from that one.
Yeah. It was Whitney Sewell. Who first, planted the seed with us. Like he's like, man, you don't have to start with single family.
Yeah.
Just go straight to my family.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's crazy. You're crazy, man.
Yeah.
So, but it planted the seed, and yeah. Our future right now for the rest of this year, just to share with everybody, like being a lead sponsor on a deal is exhausting, especially when you're working a full-time job. We're both of us working full-time. Like being leads is another full-time job, which then comes with asset management and things like that. And so in order to ensure that we achieve the projections that we set forth, we plan on only closing on one more deal this year as lead sponsors, but at least 3 more deals this year, and 2 of those will be as co-sponsors. And so meaning that we won't take a lead role, we'll kind of bring capital to a deal, but we're looking for syndicators who we trust, who are going to kind of lead the charge on that. But yeah, we'd like to close on 4 deals total this year, 2 more as co-sponsors, and then 1 more as a lead. Just because the asset management role will take up a lot of time, and we need to make sure that we preserve our investors' capital.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that's awesome right there, man. Thank you guys. You guys are more than welcome to come to our breakout rooms. We'll be doing it in a couple of minutes. So before I get to roll call, Ellison, if you could you just talk about Alabama deal to everybody?
Yeah, basically I've been looking at a commercial property in Montgomery, Alabama. It's 277 units. It used to be a hotel. It's been vacant for over 7 years. I just had GC look at it and it doesn't look good right now. All the doors are gone. All the windows are gone. The electrical panels with all the copper wires gone. So I talked with the broker that's representing me, and I talked to them about it, and I guess whoever the seller is has I guess they got this a few years ago, bought it for $1 million, and then was looking to wholesale it for $2 million. But looking at what the property is right now, we're not interested in it. But we might be interested in the future because within the next year, their loan might be up. So it's something that we're going to actively pursue to see what happens. But it's a very interesting property if done correctly.
So can you tell everybody the reason why you're looking for the property? So that.
Well, in Montgomery, there's a lot of not a lot of affordable housing, which is what I was targeting. So with affordable housing, there's all these different ways that you could go with it, right? You could go Section 8. You can do assisted family living. You could also do homeless vets, which is one of the buildings that I was targeting. I wanted to subdivide it for homeless vets. There's a large population of homeless vets in Montgomery, and I found someone to work with. Just on a side note, I own a fourplex in Montgomery, and I'll be rehabbing it in next month and the month after. And that's where I'm going to start the pilot program with 12 homeless vets. I'm working with, you guys might know her, I'm not sure, but her name's Lieutenant General Gwen Blocker. She's retired Air Force. She used to work at Maxwell Air Force Base. And one of the things that she's doing now is helping homeless people. So one of the things that she was able to do is she has a whole list of homeless vets, and we're trying to find the perfect 12 that would help us start this pilot program, because we want them to be able to use their VA loans and get their own properties and replicate the process. That's something where it doesn't have to be Montgomery, it can be anywhere they want to go in the US. But I was hoping that this large, it's a total of 6 buildings, would be a large solution for the problem, but it's going to have to be kind of in the back burner for now.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, this is something ongoing. I didn't. We'll this will be more in the future. I know that we talked about this week, but it was more in the future. I just wanted people to be aware of what was going on. But like I said again, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Suzy, for being great guest speakers. I know people got a lot of value on it. I'm gonna go to the roll call real quick, and then we'll go to breakout rooms. So roll call is when especially for new people, I want to talk about different entities that they can go to get more information about real estate. So I'm gonna start with military. Active duty passive income is a great one. They have a podcast and they have different platforms that you can learn for cheap with other military people. 7-figure flipping with Bill Allen. That's another great website, another great group that you can join. And you learn a lot. White Feathers, they're based out of California. That's another RIA group, military RIA group that associated that can help you out with former military people that are doing real estate. And then finally, The War Room Mastermind group that me, Michael, Suzy, and Kenneth are part of. They really hold you accountable, and you learn a lot. And as you guys see with Michael and Suzy, they use the War Room Mastermind group to start their deal process and partner up with somebody and get some information. So um, I would say please, if you're military, please join one of these groups if you can. If you want more information, please get with me, and I will let you. I will send you that way. For civilians, bigger pockets, as Michael and Susie said, great platform, um, and that's another great one to use. I mean, a lot of good information on bigger pockets. Um, Jamal Keen's Make Real Estate Real. That's a $1,000 real estate group. Course that he has, but it goes from A to Z, everything about real estate, um, and great community as well. And then last but not least, I'm a pitch Ring, wholesale real estate investment group that me and Ellison are part of. We have chapters all over the United States, and it's a great group. Not a lot of money, and and we learn a lot. And we have like a bi-monthly meeting every month on Zoom, and teach people about real estate. And I just want to pitch ideas to people that you don't got to spend a lot of money to learn real estate. So, a lot of times people like myself will spend thousands of dollars on gurus or courses, things like that. You don't spend a lot of money to learn. So I just want to pitch those things out there. That's the reason for roll call.